All right. Top speed. Table set before me, so plus the other side can't ignore me. They just wanna join, say Lord you would change up. Maybe you should flip a coin. They got the trophy waiting for me where I'm going. Put that banner up. The skills here are so intact. I travel to the future when I step back. Hang time like the dock and you might be stacked. But to stop what we got, man, you might need Shaq. They think our confidence is arrogance, but that's just fact. Destiny yelling how we look if we don't scream back. We are cream of the crop, the top tier. That's why they beating on the drums, cause the champs in here.
Koreans are showing a blueprint.
Yeah, ready. Yeah. Oh, just look at that piece. Yeah. Come on. You will never get in on our level. We goes here, we will never settle. So we raise high here, we call it heavy metal. Giving no breaks, yeah, the beat on the pedal. Top three. Up for any challenge you bring. See the results of the last group that challenged the team. Efficiency is high when you challenge the ring. Matter of fact, hold this L and clean. You deserve it. We don't just dominate, we serving. No guesswork here, we certain. You see the wins and start flirting. We put a ring on it, where's the curtains? Ready. Yeah. They say I'm hungry. Just look at this piece. Yeah. You will never get in on our level. We go here, we would never settle. So we raise high here, we call it heavy metal. Giving no breaks, yeah, the beat on the pedal. Top three.
Again, Koreans are showing a blueprint for what should be happening when these politicians play with our lives. The problem, I think, in America is so often folks do not really believe that the politicians are playing with their lives. Like, it's like this trust in politicians that is so confounding to me.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a latest episode of the Good Faith Show. I'm your host, Andre Morton, and I want to introduce my first guest on the Good Faith Show, the Left Independent. What's up, Left?
Yo, I am doing marginally well. I'm a little bit under the weather. I woke up with congestion and cough and stuff, and it's like, just getting used to the colder weather now. I've been back in the country since last Thursday. I visited my girlfriend, now fiance, in the Philippines, and just recovering from that. It is dreadfully hot in the Philippines. It gets like into the hundreds during the summer, and then in winter, it still only gets down to like maybe, I want to say, like during the low 80s, high 70s. So
Wow.
it's
that's insane. Like about the Philippines, you think they got a lot to do with climate change?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
A lot of it is, but also I think a lot of it is also just the natural climate. I mean, it is in a tropical zone, so you're not likely to really get cooler weather regardless.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, guys, the Good Faith Show is only on the ATP network. You can catch the ATP network on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and Twitter. And also too, before we get to a lot, because we got a lot to talk about, I got some shameless plugs on the bottom of your screen. Support my best friend and CEO, Tired Peasant. Her cash app is $Liz4285. Donate to Travis. He's our publicist. His cash app is KBarrow11. And another member of the ATP network, Provolone. Support her on cash app. Her cash tag is $Miss Provolone1967. And also, too, I have a podcast. It's called Real Recognize Real, available on all major podcasting platforms. And also, too, follow my right-hand man, Smurf. His Twitter account handle is @DemonsNick. So, okay. And also, too, Like the video, guys, because when you like it, it pushes it out in the algorithm. So, yeah. The first question I want to start off with, how did you get into politics?
I've been involved in politics really since the mid '90s. I graduated high school in 1992. Kind of paid mild attention to politics. I voted for Bill Clinton twice. Unfortunately, that was before I understood just how awful things had gotten. But I really started getting more into progressive politics while I was trying to go through my associate's degree, and really kind of started getting more informed. I was a huge fan of Ralph Nader back in the day, and he kind of put me onto a lot of stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to learn about. So by the time the 2000 election rolled by, I was pretty much done with the Democrats. Voted for Ralph Nader in 2000. Yeah, at me, bitches. Come on. It's like 24 years later, they're still blaming Ralph Nader for losing the election when it was Al Gore who lost it. It's like, no, sorry, but when you fail to distinguish yourself from your opponent, and then you use some of the worst arguments in court defending your victory, to the point where the Supreme Court is like, okay, yeah, we've heard enough. We already made our decision anyway. We're going to declare the shrub the winner, even though we know he lost. That's just, the writing is kind of on the wall that you kind of blew it. I mean, Gore didn't even win his own home state. So I don't know. And 200,000 Democrats in Florida voted for George W. Bush that year. So when it gets to that point, that you're blaming a third party who didn't even get the number of votes that voted for the Republican, that's a you problem.
Yes. Yeah. I think, I was real young, but just looking back, past experience, I think Al Gore just ran a weak campaign.
He did. I mean, he was just so wishy-washy. I mean, I remember the Elian Gonzalez debacle, where the government tried to keep him in the country. For those unfamiliar, back in 2000, a bunch of Cuban migrants tried to flee by boat, one of whom was a woman who had kidnapped her son and tried to flee the country with him. That the father had been awarded custody for reasons having to do with her unfitness as a mother, and then she goes ahead and proves it by kidnapping him, taking him on a leaky boat, which then sank in the middle of the sea en route, and then he was the only survivor. So, a lot of people in the Cuban community in Florida, which is comprised primarily of Cuban exiles who were kicked out when Castro took over. These would have been like the plantation owners, the business owners, basically the colonial collaborators. So, they've long held like this almost religious cult-like furor against Cuba, and they wanted to use his kid as leverage during the election. And Bill Clinton was like, "Nah, we're going to return the kid because we have no legal claim to him." That's probably one of the few things he did that I actually respect. But Gore was like, "No, we got to keep him here." But that was the same exact position that George W. Bush was taking. And it's like, well, wait, you're supposed to try and distinguish yourself from your opponent, not adopt the same positions that he's taking. And that to me was like, just completely unprincipled, and one of the reasons why Gore just couldn't get my support. I remember watching TV in October of 2000 on PBS. There was this debate between Ralph Nader and Pat Buchanan. That was far more of a debate than the ones that were held between Gore and Bush, who agreed on like 99% of everything.
That sounds the same to me. Like now, like the vice presidential debate when Vance and Walsh was basically egging each other up. Yeah, I agree with that, Walsh, and I agree with that, Vance. They show you these parties are the same to me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like, how do you have a quote unquote debate where both candidates who are allowed to attend are too busy trying to one up each other and like how far right and fascistic you can be, and how much you can support a genocide better than your opponent, like a genocide.
Yes, it's insane, man. Yeah, we're gonna get to the genocide in a few minutes, but let's fast forward to now. Like, you know, the this election 2024. Um, you know, the Democrats lost bad. Like, they lost the House, lost the Senate, and the presidency, and they are blaming each other more than they blaming us, the left. But just tell me, like, just give me some like points on why you think Harris lost the election.
Because she's a fascist. That's a short answer. I mean, people
Yeah,
don't actually
that's
like.
true.
I mean, Donald Trump didn't win this election so much as Kamala Harris lost.
Yeah,
That was the same thing as in 2016.
yeah,
Hillary Clinton uh, didn't so much lose to Trump as she lost to herself because she's got too many skeletons in her closet. I mean, and there was such naked corruption in the nominating process, people just gave up on voting. I mean, in 2016 and 2020, we saw Bernie Sanders, man who should have been the rightful nominee,
yes,
cheated twice. Not that he actually fought for his victory anyway, but we saw twice how the Democrats very publicly cheated to deny the will of the people, and then nominate a candidate who then went on to lose to a TV reality show host.
yeah, game show. Yes,
And,
yeah,
and that's not even getting into the policy debacle, because when your policies are worse than the Republicans, that's a problem. People, I mean, Harry Truman in 1952, he was giving a speech to a gathering of Democrats and a few Republicans, but he made this point that when you give voters the choice between a Republican and a Democrat who acts like a Republican, people will more often choose the actual Republican because they don't trust the Democrat. Because why vote for the Democrat if he's just going to act like a Republican anyway? You just vote for the Republican, you know what you're getting.
yeah,
Whereas the Democrat, is basically trying to be all things to all people, or worse, trying to pander to the opposition at the expense of his own party. It's like no one's going to support that.
yeah. Good, great points, man. Yeah, yeah. Kamala Harris, it was a fascist. Like, I look at her record, like, as a attorney general, man, it's abysmal. Like, hid evidence, that could have got people like me out of out of prison, and the other stuff, clemency. She was like, yeah, like you said, she had a lot of skeletons. Well, yeah, she had a lot of skeletons in her closet. And and we're in an era of technology where people are actually looking up stuff. This is not like 2004 or 2000 or even 2008. So yeah, yeah, like those 10 million people that didn't vote for her. They must have realized that, yeah, she's got a lot of baggage. So
Yeah,
um,
I mean, just the genocide alone
yeah,
is such that you just can't forgive that. I mean, she lost a Muslim vote supporting the genocide, saying she wouldn't do anything different from uh, Joe Biden, who basically, I mean, he hasn't actually even been the president the last 4 years. I don't know exactly who's been in charge. I think maybe just the neoconservatives with whom he surrounded himself at the beginning of his regime have been running the show. I don't think even Harris is even running things because she's too stupid to really
yeah,
know what she's doing. So, I mean, listening to her speak in public, it was just an exercise in wondering if she's suffering some form of dementia herself, because she's so busy
yeah,
trying to spew word salad, trying to avoid answering direct questions with direct answers. Uh, and it comes across like she has no idea what she's doing. So even if she were smart, and I don't think she is, I mean, right wingers by and large tend to be very stupid people, but uh, there, and I know some people like to say, hey, don't paint with such a
yeah,
broad brush, but these are right wingers we're talking about. Okay,
yeah.
they don't extend
Understand?
that same courtesy to us.
Yeah,
I got fed up decades ago trying to be civil with the far right because they never returned the favor. So just
yeah,
don't give them the benefit of being civil to them, or assuming that they're basically decent people at heart. They're not. They are literal fucking psychopaths.
Agree.
All right, and if we don't understand that and accept it, we cannot hope to fight it, because the only thing you can do in the situation that we're in now is to fight back, and you can't do that if you don't even recognize that you're in a war.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, man. All right, the genocide, we obviously, we know that this been happening before October 7th, but over the past year, it's October 7th when, we know what Hamas did and all that stuff. Tell me, do you see any way out for the Palestinians to have the right to return, or
I wish I could see a way out, but considering how far both parties are in the back pocket of Netanyahu, I don't see any way of ending this short of direct intervention by a major power like Russia or China, and I don't see them risking a nuclear conflict just to stop Israel from committing genocide. I think at this point, it's either Iran comes to the rescue or nobody at all, because Lebanon, unfortunately, is in no position to press a drawn-out war against Israel. I mean, Hezbollah really does not have the resources for a protracted war either. They were able to thwart the ground invasion, but they're still not able to stop the missile attacks or the drone attacks or any of the assassination campaigns that Tel Aviv has been waging. So I don't see this as ending anytime soon or until it's been completed. And once it's completed, that's it.
yeah. Yeah, and if you look at the images in Gaza right now, Gaza is basically a parking lot right now, man. Like it's so the genocide alone, in terms of like our pro Palestine activists, our mental health is weighing on us, and yeah, you're right, man. I agree with you. Yeah, Trump is not gonna do anything. Trump said himself. He told him finish the job. And you know what that means.
Yeah, and the people gloating and saying prepare for what's coming that you voted for. It's like, well, first of all, no, we didn't.
Exactly.
And second, why are you gloating over this?
Yeah.
People are being murdered. Like
Yes.
I was just reading an article today about Israel murdering a 10-year-old girl, shooting her directly in the chest. A 10-year-old.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I mean, how do you look at something like this, or watch the babies dying in their incubators, children burning alive in their hospital beds, and not see the humanity in them and be able to gloat over that because we didn't vote for your genocidal maniac of a candidate who is responsible for that happening in the first place.
Exactly. You know what's crazy though? I know this is not related, but my friend, the same people that you talking about call her a racist because she called Kamala Harris and Beyonce a genocidal maniacs. Like it's just
I know. I mean, it's like what, and you're saying that it's not racist to dehumanize Palestinians or cheer for their murder.
Exactly. It's.
I mean, the sheer audacity. I mean, and I am one of those people who wishes Hollywood were woke and wishes that the Democrats were actually woke. They're not, but
No.
they do use identity politics to try and divide people and cover for a lot of stuff that you would never let a white Republican male get away with.
Yeah.
And that to me is just reprehensible. I mean, you're basically putting on the appearance of wokeness. So it's really just kind of tokenism. But it's a way of saying, okay, you're trying to dodge accountability for the actions of a specific set of individuals by using their identity as a shield. And I'm sorry, I didn't buy it during the Obama era. I'm not going to buy it during the Harris era or for Hillary Clinton. So like, miss me with that shit. I voted twice for Jill Stein, so I'm not sexist because I refuse to vote for Hillary Clinton.
That's what exactly. Like I was a fool and voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Then I voted for Jill Stein this year. But yeah, like because I don't support people that lock up black men and you know and support genocide. I'm racist or I'm a sexist. Like get the fuck up out of here. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
and then for Bill Clinton to go to Michigan and lecture Muslims, telling them Israel has a biblical right to live there and steal their land and
yeah,
murder their families, and it's like, what the fuck are you smoking, Bill? I know you were known for not inhaling, but
yeah,
yeah, right, he inhaled absolutely,
yeah,
but
yeah,
come
yeah.
on, it's like, lay off, dude. How can you be that fucking tone deaf
Yes.
and claim that it's the people being genocided who are racist and anti-Semitic for opposing genocide and criticizing the murder of their families?
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? I mean, I'm half Polish, okay? Half the 6 million Jews who were killed in the Holocaust were Polish citizens, and of the 11 million total killed in the Holocaust, 4.2 million were Polish citizens. So I'm in a position to say, without any shame or any regret, it is not anti-Semitic to criticize a nation, whether it's nominally Jewish or Christian or whatever. It is not anti-Semitic to criticize the specific actions and policies of a particular government.
Yeah, and that's like me telling the indigenous people that hey, the colonizers has a right to America. Like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
we stole the land.
and then they send Barry Obama to lecture black men and call them sexist for not voting for Kamala Harris, even though she's responsible for locking black men up and women too in
Yeah.
record numbers as California Attorney General. I mean, she was even locking up parents whose kids were too sick to go to school. It's like, what the fuck is your major malfunction? You're locking up the parents for something that's beyond their control.
Yeah, like I said this in a Beverly of times. I said maybe the parent is a single parent. They can't watch the kids all the time, and if you live in the city, it's a lot of things to do, and you might meet some people, gangs and stuff like that. Like you can't, you're not around your kids all the time. You're working all the time, so yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
It's
and frankly, with COVID disabling children in alarming numbers, a lot of kids are too sick to go to school.
true.
Because among other things, COVID does, it also depletes the immune system. So, kids are getting sick all the time with COVID, with RSV, norovirus, strep throat, whooping cough, measles now is making a comeback. Measles actually wipes out your immune memory so that anything you've been immunized against, whether through prior infection or through vaccination, that's gone.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And people are bringing measles back because they don't want to get their kids vaccinated. It's like, what the fuck is your major malfunction? And now Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh God, yeah,
is going to be in charge of dismantling our vaccination programs.
yeah, yeah. Ain't he the same one that told somebody what?
Clayton,
That was on the island. Yeah, that that a vaccine, it messes with you, and them people died because of that. So
yeah, it's like I completely do not accept that under any.
either.
Yeah, it's just complete bullshit by people who just are looking for excuses to not get their kids vaccinated. And frankly, if you're that inhuman enough that you place your own selfish wants above the very real needs of other people, especially your own children, to the point where you're willing to jeopardize their lives and their long-term health so you can prove yourself right. I'm sorry, but no, you do not deserve to keep your kids.
Exactly. That's maybe I'm wrong to say this, but I think that's like an example of child abuse in my thing. In my
No,
opinion.
it is
I'm
child
sorry.
abuse. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up with that sort of mentality, from my mother. She she's from a generation that, where children are viewed as property of their parents from birth to death. And, and it's up to the children to obey and be silent and just do what they're told, and it's
Same
like
here.
even if
Same here.
what they're being told is wrong.
Yeah, yeah. My mom was the same way, man. Yeah. Um, yeah. Let's talk about COVID for a minute. Like, yeah, man. It's like we know the pandemic's still killing people, and it's just like people just now we're not at a point where nobody like people just in the I don't give a fuck mode. Like, no, like you go to the grocery store, nobody want masking anymore. You got even people on Twitter that supposed to be our allies are just denouncing COVID. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and a lot of them are going after companies like Nuke to be sure for selling affordable mitigation tools like far UV torches, air filters, uh, stuff. And apparently, it's because they're not getting free stuff that they're going after Nuke, and it's just completely insane. I can pull it up. So right now my browser is frozen. It doesn't seem to want to work. I can open up new tabs, but I can't switch. So I can't unfortunately call up the tab. But if you go on to Nuke to be sure's Twitter page, because I'm not calling it the other thing. Yeah, you can see
yeah,
where a lot of it, they're just accusing the owner of racism because of apparently a white customer who was doing an overseas trip used the mitigation tools from that and from Adam Wong, who sells an Air Fanta HEPA filter. There's like a portable version that I used for my trip overseas, and then there's a room version that it's basically a souped up Corsi Rosenthal box. Very affordable, but you also have to keep in mind, that this is probably like the lowest price that you can get these for, and still help out these small businesses, because they're not like major corporations. They cannot afford to expand and give their stuff away for free indefinitely. And
exactly.
and when you spend time attacking these people and spreading lies about them, trying to get them shut down, that really kind of calls into question, what the American COVID conscious community is smoking. Like, I mean, I know COVID does cause brain damage, but
Yeah,
this is the kind of behavior that was happening even before the pandemic. So, it's not just because COVID is damaging people's brains, that there's something, very entitled with regards to Western mentality, where it's like we feel entitled to other people's labor without actually doing anything to earn it or pay for it. And I just find that reprehensible. It's beyond the pale, to quote some of the 90s and early 2000s snowflakes on the far right who love to use that phrase back in the day. But it really is it really is beyond the pale, because we're at a time now when public health is basically all but destroyed. It's about to be finished off under Caligula Drum 2.0, and instead of showing solidarity, especially with people in other countries who are at risk communities, we're attacking them and stopping them from sharing mitigation tools with the West, because they have to protect themselves and their interests, so that they don't end up in prison or worse.
yeah,
The actions of people here in the West. So if you're able to support Nukit and Adam Wong, those are just two sellers of mitigation tools, but they'll also give you very good information, and they're also very willing to show the testing on their products to show what it does and what it doesn't do, and I admire their honesty in acknowledging the limitations of their own products. Where it's like, if you go on like a lot of the sellers' websites where they're promoting their products like Far UV or HEPA air filtration, they're making all sorts of claims on their stuff that's like, yeah, is this really true? No, not really, because they're not really being transparent with their testing. But I do admire Nukit and Adam Wong for being honest about what they're limitations of their products are. It's not just, you cannot just rely on one single thing to clean the air. I mean, the large scale air filters, those take time to get up to the point where you need them to. And of course, the more people you have in a room, the longer it's going to take to clear the air of airborne pathogens. So you really kind of, and you also have to take into account the size of the room, whether people are actually masking, all sorts of stuff that people just don't want to take into account. So any seller that is honest about their product and what it can and can't do, that's the one you want to support. But we're largely on our own, I think, with regards to COVID, because neither Republicans or Democrats are interested in protecting us. They're captured by neoconservative ideology, which years ago was described by one writer, describing the differences between traditional conservatives and neoconservatives. And the differences with traditional conservatives, they believe in small government, but at least paying for the one that you have, whereas neoconservatives believe in no government at all and don't even believe in paying for the government that you have. So they're very much borrow and spend. But there's also another aspect of neoconservative ideology, which is because they don't believe in government at all, they don't believe the government should actually do anything at all. So it's very reactive rather than being proactive. And even when a disaster happens, they try and do the bare minimum they can get away with. And if they can get away with doing nothing at all, then they'll go ahead and do nothing at all. And COVID, unfortunately, is a perfect example of that, because we've seen both major political parties pretty much say, nope, you're on your own, you do you, we're not going to do anything to help you. We've already done more than we were inclined to do in the first place. And even Trump only did the checks and the COVID pandemic assistance because he was kind of forced into it by the circumstances. If he could have gotten away with it, he would have taken the Clinton and Biden approach. But it's kind of telling that even Trump, as awful his response was to the ongoing pandemic, he at least did more for people than Joe Biden ever did.
Yeah, and a lot of people say it too, that the reason why they voted for Trump is because he gave them a check. And when you give, I found out when you give people stuff, they tend to, clinch onto that. So
yeah. It's like, yeah, because people, by and large, I mean, and I'm not trying to say this to insult anyone's intelligence or their political activities, but most people are just trying to survive and they're barely scraping by. So and they don't necessarily have the time or the energy to pay attention to politics on the level that you or I do. So they're going to pay attention to what material benefits they got when a particular politician was in office. So under Trump, they didn't get much assistance, but they still got some assistance, which helped them out at a time when they really needed it. And so you're going to remember that. And you're going to remember, politicians like Joe Biden who cut off assistance when it was needed most and told them get back to work and, take off your masks and expose yourselves repeatedly to a mass disabling viral pandemic.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to do anything at all to help you out.
And my friend, she I think she had COVID back in September, and I'm pretty sure, long COVID. Pretty sure she has long COVID now because you keep getting repeated infection like that. And she works at a grocery store, she masks, but other people don't mask. So like you said, they just say, hey, you do you, and leave us alone. And if you look at other countries, like they actually took care of their people. Like they told them to stay home. They gave them their work salary. They, gave them free tests, even though, they give us free tests, but very limited. So it's crazy.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I was in the Philippines last month, Granted, most people are convinced that COVID doesn't exist in the Philippines. Well, no, it does exist because we've got Americans coming over unmasked and unvaccinated and spreading the virus. So yeah, it's still running wild over there. But I did see a lot more people there masking than I do here in the United States. I mean, restaurant workers, grocery store workers, mall security. A lot of them are wearing KN95s or better, and it's just really interesting to see, how the difference in Asian countries. If they get so much as a tickle in their throat, or if there's a threat of a pandemic, they mask up without any question, because it's like just common sense. It's like, spreading a virus and making other people sick, not a good idea. Because then they'll make us sick, and then and then we won't be able to get any work done. So you just wear a high quality respirator, or at least a bare minimum a surgical mask.
Yeah.
Surgical masks unfortunately don't do much, but they're better than nothing. But they at least have the sense, when there's something going around, to actually mask up. And we don't have that here. There's like this. It's perceived as being some kind of divine right to go ahead and get other people sick, and it's like, no, you do not have that right.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think about this, but when you a carrier of COVID, but somebody else is immune compromised, you give it to them and they die, you basically murdered them. I hate to say it like that, but it's true. Like, they don't think about that. Like,
a lot of people don't, and it's just really frustrating to see this attitude. Even among people who should have known better, like Jimmy Dore or Glenn Greenwald and their suck ups. People who should be able to say, hey, look, we're in a pandemic and we should be protecting each other, and they're the first to jump on board with the extreme right and say, no, you have a right to go ahead and spread a disease. No, you don't. No, you do not have a right to spread a disease. Okay, you have a right to have your own rights respected, but spreading a disease, especially one that could kill or cripple someone, and that is something you do not have a right to do. Okay, if the exercise of your rights comes at the expense of harming other people, no, that is not a right that you have. And I don't think enough people on the so-called left or liberal media really understand this. And Greenwald especially, considering he got his husband killed from COVID, because David Miranda died from some kind of gastrointestinal bug that is known to have been caused by COVID. So how much do you want to bet that Greenwald gave his husband COVID? His husband developed this gastrointestinal thing that ultimately killed him, and then Greenwald is like, perfectly fine with that. It's like, how do you live with yourself?
Yeah, like, you want to pander to the right that bad to potentially kill your own husband, like,
and leave their kids without a father. It's like, oh my god, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Which is probably why he blocked me, because I called him out for it. But it's like, and you would think that Jimmy Doorknob, as I call him, it's like, Doorknob, he strikes me as being kind of the unprincipled guy who's a contrarian just to be a contrarian. Him adopting the COVIDiot ideology is bad enough, but then he was defending Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh yeah, that's when I was done.
And attacking Black Lives Matter people, and then he was also, defending Trump even when it wasn't warranted, and saying Trump was anti-war and sucking up to Tucker Carlson. It's like, fucker Carlson, seriously? You're sucking up to this clown shoe?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these guys are, and they're being promoted as anti-war by Doorknob and his crowd. And I'm like, dude, seriously? They're not anti-war. They're just pretending to be against the war in Russia because they see China as the bigger threat, and they want to go to war against China. They're not anti-war. I guarantee you Trump is not going to end the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
First of all, because he can't. He has neither the knowledge or the political acumen
Yeah.
to do it, because Russia is winning that war.
Yeah.
And you know, I get called a Putin puppet quite frequently by NAFO trolls, but I don't even like Putin. I think he's a bigoted asshole, and I don't waste any
Same
more
here.
brain power than I absolutely need to on him, because I don't care about bigoted assholes. But if you seriously think that putting not literal Nazis on Russia's doorstep to bomb the living daylights out of Russian speakers in the eastern part of the country, you know, because they didn't want to be ruled by actual freaking neo-Nazis and broke away, and then they spent 8 years shelling these people, and then you're threatening to put nukes along Russia's border within minutes of hitting Moscow. If you think Russia's not going to go in and do something about that, you're out of your damn mind.
Exactly.
And frankly, you know, I mean, at this point, Russia's winning the war, so it doesn't have to negotiate. It doesn't have to make any concessions. They're winning. So what is Trump going to offer Putin or any of the Russian defense intelligence apparatus that will get them to make any concessions that would help the West save any face?
Exactly. I mean,
So, right. I mean, the best he could do is just walk away like the current regime is, where it's basically saying, you know, look, we've given you all we have. You're pretty much on your own now, just like they did with the Kurds. A lot of people forget the Kurds and the way the United States treated them in the late 80s and early 1990s, because during the first Gulf War, you had Saddam Hussein going to Kuwait, because the Kuwaitis were basically diagonal drilling to tap into Iraqi oil fields across the border. Hussein was like, no, man, that's not going to happen. So, you know, he wanted to take them out. And then someone in Saudi Arabia went to George H.W. Bush and said, you know, look, we don't feel comfortable having Iraq take over Kuwait, because, you know, then, you know, that puts them in a position to take action against us for when we decide to go after Iraq. So,
yeah.
You know, so they went in and invaded Iraq and got them out of Kuwait, and then spent years sanctioning the country, starving 500,000 Iraqi children. But a lot of people forget that George H.W. Bush had encouraged the Iraqi Kurds to rise up and try and overthrow the Iraqi government, and then offered no support, and basically abandoned them to Saddam Hussein, who basically crushed the revolt and left a lot of people dead in that wake. But also, we just have never really taken accountability for abandoning the Kurds to the point where it's not even acknowledged anymore. And so, you know, having been a student of history for half my life, and looking at political events, and having as long a memory as I do, you know, I can pretty much see the writing on the wall. Ukraine is about to become the next Kurdistan, where, you know, they'll be used every now and then to try and stir up trouble against another country, you know, mostly Russia or one of its satellite nations. But they're basically finished as any kind of organized nation state. I don't think there's going to be any Ukraine left after this is all said and done. I think the only reason Zelensky has not surrendered now is because he's in a catch-22 situation, where if he doesn't surrender, there's not going to be a Ukraine left after this year or next year. I think Ukraine is at the point now where its ability to keep fighting is going to be non-existent. But if he does surrender, then his Nazi handlers will introduce the back of his head to a bullet, and they'll just appoint someone who will continue the fighting, even though it's suicide for Ukraine. So, you know, I think it's a situation where there are no good options, and we're probably going to reach a point eventually with Ukraine that there's not going to be one anymore on the map. That's at least nothing recognizable. Donbass is gone. Crimea is gone. There's probably going to be Odessa is going to be next, I think. Um, I know Kursk region is falling right now to Russian forces. So that there's really not much that can be done at this point to salvage the country. And of course, because Trump won, the neocons who are surrounding Biden are basically walking away to their cushy corporate positions, where they hope to spend the next 4 years biding their time until they can resume where they left off. And I think Trump, being as incompetent as he is, he's not going to be able to salvage anything out of this either. I mean, he's bringing in his own set of neocons, but they're as stupid, as incompetent as all the others.
Yeah, I call his I call them yes men and yes women. That's basically what they are. Like,
the thing about neoconservatives and Alex Mercouris over at the Duran, plus he also has his own channel. Now Mercouris is by no means perfect on American politics and politicians. He's woefully uninformed or misinformed, and I think a little bit naive. But when it comes to analyzing the wars that the United States has fought, he's actually pretty decent. And he pretty much pointed out that neocons have no reverse gear. Like when confronted by the failures of their ideology, their policies, strategies, and tactics, they're unwilling to admit any wrongdoing or any error. They simply double down, blame others for not doing it hard enough, and then just proceed to do the same thing over and over again, thinking they'll get different results if they just double down and commit even harder to the same failed strategies. So I don't think we're going to see anything really different coming out of the Trump regime with regards to Ukraine. I do think he's going to be even more hostile towards Iran. Iran pretty much proved back in the summer, in fact, back in April, really, that it can take out Israel's Iron Dome and go after it. So if Israel doesn't wise up and really quickly, and I don't think it will, Iran's probably going to end its fatwa against nuclear weapons. It can probably have enough uranium enriched to install on warhead within a week, and deliver it to its payload site. And there's nothing that the U.S. or Israel can do to stop it, because their missile defense systems have proven ineffective.
Yeah, the crazy thing about the Iron Dome is that our taxpayers went to that shit. Like, this is why I don't like. This is why I hate this country, man. Like, that money towards the Iron Dome could have went towards homelessness. Could have went towards the victims of storms. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've got more vacant homes than we have homeless people, but instead of housing people, we're making it a crime to be homeless.
Yeah.
And you've got Gavin Newsom out there personally helping dismantle homeless encampments. It's like, okay, you can pretty much kiss any presidential ambitions you might have had goodbye, because people will remember that. And if you think Kamala Harris was unpopular outside, Newsom is pretty much going the Harris route of being popular only in his own home state, and even in his own home state, he's despised.
Yeah,
because he's too much of a right-wing douchebag.
Yeah, ain't that the same Gavin Newsom that told people to lock down while he was having parties, maskless?
Yeah,
then they had a recall election.
And with regards to lockdowns, lockdowns tend to happen when everyone's actually doing it, and they were never actually enforced. So, when people talk about lockdowns, they're not actually talking about that 2-month period where we all pretended to quarantine, but but we were all having, most people were having COVID parties or whatever and spreading the virus anyway. No, they're talking about masks.
Yeah,
in public spaces. They're talking about air ventilation. They're talking about filtering the air. They're talking about far UV installations. So they're talking about vaccines. They're not talking about quarantines. This idea that Democrats are all about lockdowns, it's a joke.
No.
We didn't actually have any real lockdowns. China had lockdowns, and even then they weren't nationwide. They basically tended to take place in areas where there were, substantial outbreaks.
Targeted, yeah.
Yeah. So, even they were rather strategic about how they implemented their lockdown policies. And they didn't actually lift those until they had set up a healthcare system to treat victims of COVID. They're actually repurposing HIV drugs to help people who are suffering from COVID because they found that those drugs are actually effective at treating a lot of the things that COVID is causing.
Yeah.
So even though I am not happy about China doing away with mitigation, they're still doing more to treat people affected by COVID than we are here in the United States, which is just awful. I mean, it's like when it gets to the point where you've got people in Boston, that they have to do an entire quarantine because an entire plane full of people arrived in Boston sick. And this is 2024, 4 years after a pandemic began, and we should know better. But you're letting people get onto airplanes where it's an enclosed space at 35,000 feet in the air, and viruses are spreading unchecked among passengers and crew. I mean, I had my AirFanta 4 Lite HEPA filter going on the plane trip back from Japan because I had a layover in Japan. By the way, I just as a segue, I had a overnight layover in Japan on my way back home, and the toilets there are fantastic. I am so jealous. They've got heated seats, warm water bidet function, air dry for your bottom, adjustable stream settings. Oh my God, dude! And that's just even in their cheapest hotels, which I stayed at. I think it was like 30 something for the night there.
Wow.
And it was just like this little sleep pod that really nothing, which is why it's so cheap, but their bathroom was great. But on the airliner back from Tokyo to the United States, one of the stewardesses was asking what this device was that I had held up and blowing in my face. And I told her it's an air filter. It's like people don't even know about these.
Yeah, I know.
So you've got to do everything you can to mitigate stuff, and I'll be more than happy to help send information.
Yes.
About these, but
please send them to me. Yeah, I definitely I live in the South, man, and people just they like it's like COVID don't even exist around where I live, man. No mask, forget purifiers,
it's really insane. In fact, let me go ahead and give you the link to the website here.
Okay.
There's airfanta.com, and then I'll also link to Cyber Night Market.
Okay.
That's assuming I can actually. Yeah, but they also have an Amazon website as well.
Okay.
So air-fanta.com. All right. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. When was that? It was the day before Thanksgiving. I went to the grocery store, and I was the only one in. It was a lot of people in the grocery store, but I was the only one masked. So yeah, man, it's wild.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to put these two on your comments section.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's air-fanta.com and then cybernightmarket.com. Those are where I get a lot of my mitigation tools. Plus, I also got a couple of full face respirators, one from GVS and then another from 3M. But with Cyber Night Market, that's the You Get to Be Sure account. Like I said, you're going to want to make sure that you're very visible in defending the owner from attacks, because right now sales to the United States in particular and to the West in general are limited because of the ongoing harassment campaign. The seller really has to be careful because this person is a minority within the home country and has been arrested a number of times already for being too vocal in criticizing the government and simply existing. So, it's not like something that, this person can indefinitely sell to the West unless, there's an actual benefit to doing that. And if people aren't supportive, it's kind of like, if you're a business, especially a minority-owned business, and you're selling to people and you're suffering attacks, from people trying to get you shut down, well, at some point you're going to say, look, I'm selling to people who have my back as opposed to people who don't have my back. And I see who does and who doesn't. So, and that's just common sense. I mean, I try to support small businesses and especially minorities where and whenever possible. And, if I see something dishonest being said about someone, I'm going to speak up about it. I don't care how many people get offended.
Me too.
Speak up about it. So,
Me too.
I'm getting a bunch of people blocking me because I use the words idiot, imbecile, morons, and assholes to describe these idiots because and it's like, oh, you're being ableist because those are used to describe people with mental illnesses. It's like, no, it's being used to, I'm describing stupid people who know better than to behave like this and yet still do this stupid shit. Okay, I'm not attacking mentally ill people. I'm attacking the idiots who are willfully ignorant and stupid, who go out of their way to attack targeted minorities, trying to get them doxxed and arrested or worse because they didn't give free stuff to certain groups. It's like, no, sorry, if you want free stuff, you're going to have to earn it. And the least you could do to earn it is to show solidarity with the people who are offering this to your particular block of buyers.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, yeah, a lot of people are individualistic in a lot of ways. It's all about me. Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, and even for my job, because my job involves voter registration, and in 2020 I was a canvasser doing voter registration, especially in neighborhoods that are usually ignored by the Democrats and Republicans alike. So I was the one going into East Cleveland and risking my life because even people who live in East Cleveland don't like going out in East Cleveland after dark. Okay. And I was told to this by people who actually live in East Cleveland. All right. So, predominantly black suburb of Cleveland. And I was going out into those neighborhoods and speaking to people and buying from black owned businesses because I realized, look, you cannot just go into a neighborhood and expect to, get signatures if you're not actually showing that you're willing to be part of that community and support that community. And frankly, going into a lot of minority-owned businesses, you open up a world to yourself that you didn't even know existed before because you were in this insular bubble. And when you get to talk to people, you become a part of that community.
Yeah.
And you cannot expect to be an activist and not become a part of other people's communities because we're all part of one big community, and you have to be willing to go into the mini communities within that larger one in order to talk to people and gain their trust.
Yeah.
And also just celebrate, the differences in different cultures and subcultures. You have to be willing to do that. So I was the one going ahead and doing that, which is one of the reasons why I was getting more voter registration cards and so a lot of my coworkers, because they were like being lazy about it or trying to cheat their way because they weren't willing to actually talk to people. It's like one of my coworkers in 2020, his idea of talking to people was waiting for them to walk on by, and then like while they were halfway out the door of the gas station, say, "Hey, want to register to vote?" And mumbling under his breath almost. It's like, who's going to hear you?
Yeah.
No, you have to actually get up in people's faces and approach people and say, "Oh, hey, sir, hey, have you got a minute? Hey, can you help me out? You know, I'm trying to make my quota, and I just need a few more. Can you help me out? I know you probably filled out a million of these out already, but you know, I just need some help here. Or you know, hey, you know, we're getting people registered to vote. I know you're disillusioned, but you know, even if you don't believe in federal elections, there's still local stuff you can vote on.
Yeah.
Like a school levy that, you know, but the more people vote on that, the better, so we can get our kids educated. Because right now, the clown shoes in Congress are introducing legislation to abolish the Department of Education.
I know, man. That's crazy.
And it's like, and you can't, and at that point, it really becomes up to local communities to support their schools. And if you're not registered to vote, you can't pass levies.
Mm-hmm.
Or vote out politicians like Blaine Griffin in Cleveland, who are just so nakedly corrupt and trying to dismantle city council so that they can create their own little fiefdoms within the city government. And you know, because it's at the point now where you know, so years ago, during the early 2000s, there was a proposal to eliminate all but 4 city council seats. And those city council seats would have no real voting power. There would just be the council president who would have any real voting power, and you know, essentially turn it into a dictatorship by the mayor and his like maybe 4 or 5 cronies who would be responsible for legislating, and there would be no actual representation. Well, that got voted down by the city of Cleveland, the voters. And so they've been doing a slow implementation with a charter amendment that basically reduces the number of city council members after every few years. And so Blaine Griffin, who is the current city council president, has been trying to step this up and eliminate seats. And it's just so unbelievably messed up right now what's going on. He basically got his ass handed to him during a recent city council open session. Where voters basically let him have it verbally. You know, it kind of reminded me of the 2008 and 2009 situation where, no, 2007, this was, where RTA, which was the Regional Transit Authority, was proposing making steep cuts to transit lines and increases in fares. And the CEO of RTA at the time, Joe Calabrese, spent most of his time hiding behind a screen while others spoke for him, because he didn't want to have to actually answer to any people. And I actually got myself escorted out of City Hall during one of the evening sessions where people were giving feedback, and I let him have it, and I called him filth to his face. And you know, the cop who was escorting me out, it's like, who do you think you are to talking to him? Like, you can't talk to him like that. It's like, yes, I can, because I'm a taxpaying citizen. I absolutely can't talk to him like that. In fact, I just did. And he was like threatening to arrest me. It's like, on what charges? What's your name and badge number, motherfucker? It's like, come on. It's like, I actually know people on city council. It's like, if you think you're going to intimidate me,
yeah, it's
like, think again. I'm seriously considering a run myself. Probably not going to do it, but I'm considering it. But you know, just because I feel that someone's got to run who's not afraid to stand up to people like Blaine Griffin or Justin Bibb or whoever. You know, especially you know, now when representation is being cut within the city. And the first wars to be eliminated are always the Black and Hispanic ones, and so they have no representation. And so like, someone's going to go ahead and run and say, "Look, this ends now.
Yeah,
we need more representation, not less." Okay, I don't care how low the population of the city is; the same geographic area still exists.
Exactly.
And you want to get, and you're not eliminating the predominantly white represented districts.
Yeah.
You're eliminating the Black representation. You're eliminating Hispanic representation, Asian representation, which together comprise a vast majority of the Cleveland city population.
Exactly. Yeah. That's That's kind of a systematic. It sounds to me like a systematic issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think people, if they don't think that voting matters, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Which gets me back to my my thing about my job. It's because I'm telling people, look, local stuff matters. All right, even if you don't think the federal stuff you can do anything about, you can still do stuff about the local stuff. All right,
Yeah.
I was actually a precinct captain in my local party for the Democrats back in the early 2000s, where I ran. It's called. I'm trying to remember the name. It was like precinct delegate, where you basically get to help fill like local vacancies and also help vote for delegates to go to national conventions. So so that was my role. And it's surprisingly easy to get on the ballot. I think you need like just maybe like 15 signatures or 20 signatures or however many. And if you don't have any opposition, then yeah, it makes it even easier. But you are able to do that, and it's a relatively small role within local governance, but it comes with a surprising amount of power because you get to have a say in party politics and in filling local vacancies. And a lot of people don't realize that, and so they don't get involved. They don't vote. And my job this year through that same organization involves doing voter outreach, where you're trying to verify voter registrations. And I keep telling them, look, we are getting people registered and updating their registrations because it is important. You need to stay registered, even if you never actually exercise that right, but you still have that right. And you don't want to go down if you decide to change your mind and then find out the hard way that you were removed from the voter rolls because you haven't voted in 4 years.
Yeah. And you know what else? Yeah, I always tell people too, like, when you vote on a local level, it affects you faster than federal level. So yeah, that's why I vote. Because I need to run for city council in my city too, because they're not getting things done.
Yeah, because even if you don't actually win, if you get a large enough percentage, like for example, Dennis Kucinich, during his most recent run for U.S. Congress, I think he got something like 13% of the vote, and it didn't win the election, but you can damn well better believe that the Democrat who ended up losing, because Dennis ran as an independent this time, but the Democrat who ended up losing, he was a typical right-wing Democrat, lost to the Republican. If you don't think that the local Democrats are paying attention, think again, because Dennis is a kind of Democrat back in the day. He was too much of a party man when he was in Congress, but he was just independent enough where he wasn't afraid to challenge his party leadership and say, look, I'm representing my constituents. And that's why he kept getting reelected for so many years until his district was gerrymandered out of existence, and that the state party kind of aided the Republicans in getting rid of him through a primary. So, if you don't think that matters, think again.
That's true, man. That's so true. Let's talk about what's going on in South Korea, man.
So President Yoon has been suffering some corruption accusations. He and his wife both. His wife was accused of taking gifts from Dior and also insider trading within the Korean stock market. So basically the Nancy Pelosi of South Korea. And I do not say that lightly either.
Yeah.
And then Yoon himself has been facing a backlash from the legislature over his own corruption and ability. And so he decided, I'm just going to declare martial law, and I'm going to use a pretext of North Korean influence to do it. There's two types of martial law apparently that can be declared. There's an extraordinary, and then there's provisional. And the extraordinary one is the more extreme form of martial law, which he ended up taking. That means, basically declaring a military dictatorship and cracking down on any media any dissenting information. But the problem that Yoon had was that this is 2024, not 1984.
Yeah.
And so, you've got the internet, you've got social media, you've got people posting and sharing information. And so, the parliament convened in an emergency session to overturn the martial law declaration, which Yoon initially refused to recognize. But between that and the protests that were taking place and the haphazard way in which the military was deployed at night under a protocol which pretty much made it difficult to get the weapons necessary to put down the protests, they were not in a position to really kind of enforce martial law. So Yoon basically was forced to back down and reverse his decision. And so now he's facing impeachment by the legislature, which has about 300 members, I think. And his party, the People Power Party, which is talk about Orwellian names, but they've got like 108 members. So in order for Yoon to be impeached, 8 members of his own party would need to defect and vote to impeach him. Now, whether or not that actually happens, I think is up in the air, because his own party was actually split on whether or not to support the martial law declaration. So if there are enough members of that party who think that he went too far and should be removed, and they decide to vote with the other 200 members, then Yoon could actually be removed. And he should be.
Yes.
But Yoon is basically a U.S. puppet. He came to power in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, replacing the outgoing president who was more friendly to reunification with North Korea. Now, at this point, I don't know what reunification would even entail, because the North isn't going to stop being communist.
Yeah.
And it probably would require that the South, be communist as well, or if not, at least some situation where the South would be independent and more socialist, but at least be not hostile to the North and stop trying to overthrow it all the time. So I don't know exactly how reunification would even work at this point, but just that the previous president was open to the idea was too much for the U.S. regime to tolerate. So Yoon was elected to replace him, and really, you get really kind of ramped up tensions with North Korea. And last I heard, North Korea had basically was like, yeah, we're going to cut off talks with you because you're not serious and you're basically just being a U.S. puppet. And this latest maneuver by Yoon really just kind of illustrates just how badly things have deteriorated in the peninsula, that he feels the need to kind of declare martial law and return the country to military dictatorship, which it hasn't been since 1987, I believe. Because it's been under one form of military dictatorship or another from the end of the Korean War all the way to 1987, where it was nominally granted independence, but still very much pro-United States. So the history of Korea over the last 100 years or so is just really fascinating. But especially since the end of fighting, because technically the Korean War isn't over. They had an armistice, but the war was never formally ended. So you have the demilitarized zone, you have the North and South split into two countries, but technically that war is still ongoing, and every now and then the South will ramp up tensions, trying to provoke the North. And so now the North is a nuclear power, the South isn't. And so even though the population of the South is greater than in the North, but the North still has a larger military because it's got a larger percentage of its people in the military. It has nuclear weapons. And if the war were to start up again as a hot war, as opposed to the Cold War it's been having for the last 80 years, then I don't think that the South would survive without the United States to back it up. And like I said earlier, because it's given everything to Ukraine and Israel, it really doesn't have anything to give to, say, like the Philippines, to Taiwan, to South Korea. It's pretty much screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I agree. Yoon definitely needs to be impeached. Like, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
The
Biden
rep-
needs to be impeached, especially over the pardon, because I mean,
Hell yeah. Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
basically, yeah, because this goes back to the 2014 coup in Ukraine, where the U.S. backed a neo-Nazi coup
Hmm.
during that year, and Hunter Biden, ever the opportunist, used the opportunity to get in with the help of his father uh, to set him up in a gas company called Burisma,
Yeah.
where he basically got 50 grand a month just to do nothing, and
That's, yeah.
except for setting up meetings with his old man. So when Russia went in to Ukraine to push the Nazis out of the Donbass, uh, Biden, one of the reasons why he's so adamant about continuing the war is because he's got money tied up in Ukraine. He's been using that to make money and gain influence in the region, and he can't do that if Ukraine is turned into a rump state that is basically a buffer zone between Russia and the rest of Europe. So he has been involved up to his eyeballs in that scandal. Hunter Biden was convicted of a couple of unrelated crimes, one for drug use and the other for illegally owning a firearm.
Yeah.
But there was still the specter of the Ukraine corruption scandal hovering over Hunter Biden. So Joe, because he's on his way out the door, decided to issue a blanket pardon retroactive to January of 2014. So basically, grant immunity to Hunter and himself for the crimes they committed in Ukraine.
Yeah.
As well as any other crimes they've committed. So, and believe me, they've committed other crimes as well. We don't know about them, but it's basically blanket immunity. But this is interesting because it's not an absolute immunity, because if the Republicans decide to call Hunter Biden in for testimony after Trump is inaugurated, and he refuses to cooperate, well, he doesn't have daddy to looking out for him anymore. He can still be convicted on other crimes.
Yeah.
That take place after the period for which he was pardoned. So, and I don't think the Republicans are going to be as friendly to letting Biden get away with going unprosecuted as the Democrats think, because Trump is nothing if not vindictive. He was railroaded on 34 counts of various crimes, some of which he probably was guilty of, but the prosecution's arguments pretty much made it clear that this was a political prosecution to try and prevent him from standing for re-election, and these attempts failed. They're probably going to be overturned on appeal. There are issues with the judge as far as conflicts of interest that it will probably result in appeals, and with Trump appointing the heads of the Justice Department, I don't doubt for a moment that his convictions will be overturned at some point. And if Trump were to follow through on his threats of payback in terms of prosecutions, I mean, if it were me, I would absolutely follow through on such threats, because I'm the type of person who believes, look, if you are a president of the United States and you break the law, you should be prosecuted even harder than an ordinary citizen, because your job is to carry out the law of the entire country. And you're breaking those laws and doing it with complete impunity. And I do not believe in impunity for executive actions. So, if I were president of the United States, I absolutely would be prosecuting George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and all their thugs for all the crimes they've committed. Obama and all his thugs for the crimes they committed in office. Biden and his thugs. I mean, all of them would be in prison before my first year is out. All right, I would be wearing body armor from head to toe every time I leave the White House, because and even inside the White House, because they would be trying to assassinate me, trying to prevent me from prosecuting. And it's like, no, sorry, no, you broke the law. I'm going after you. I don't care. I am setting that precedent, because no one should be above the law.
Yeah, exactly. Last question, man. Today, Brian Thompson, he got assassinated, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that one.
What
You
you
know
think?
what? Watching the videos of that, it's pretty clear that this was premeditated and planned out. The person was wearing a backpack and easily swappable clothing, mask, hoodie, hat to obscure his identity, silencer on the gun, clearly waited, knowing where he was going to be at what time. So this was clearly premeditated murder by someone who knew enough about the victim to know where he was going to be and when, and then had an obvious escape route and a plan for escape. Now, beyond that, we don't actually know any information, so I'm not going to indulge in any speculation or any conspiracy fantasies because, first of all, I despise conspiracy fantasies with a passion. Miss me with your 9/11 and COVID lab leak lies or Pizzagate bullshit.
Yeah.
Or even your Denver airport bullshit. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't like to engage in speculation without having the full range of facts. But just on what little I do know, this is clearly someone who knew what he was doing and it planned it out well in advance. Now, what the motivations were, I can only speculate, but I would not be surprised if this was someone who had lost a loved one to decisions made by Brian Thompson as CEO of United Health Care to deny health care to someone.
No, that's what I said too. I said either that guy himself got denied a claim, or a family member or somebody like, that's and his wife too. Brian Thompson's wife said he'd been receiving death threats for the last.
Yeah, and using a silencer too. I mean, not many people know to get a silencer. So how do you even get one?
Yeah.
Because people will be asking, because you just know, someone's going to be asking, why do you need a silencer? It's like, well, it's like I've got neighbors, I'm shooting in my rifle in the backyard. I need to silence it so I'm not bothering the neighbors. Okay, yeah, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is something that that was a successful execution of a mass murderer. People on Twitter are like expressing their usual indignation at how someone could take pleasure in someone's murder, and I'm like, okay, first of all, consider who the alleged victim is. A mass murderer who used his position as CEO of one of the largest health insurance companies in the nation to deny coverage to millions of Americans who cannot afford health care, many of whom probably died as a direct result of being denied health care because they couldn't afford to pay for treatment. But you want to tell me that this guy should be mourned? I mean, I half expect Tim Walz to fly flags at half staff. I mean, his Twitter post was basically mourning the business community in Minnesota. And I'm like, Tim, hello? There are people being genocided in Palestine right now. There are people in Minnesota who are still dying or becoming disabled from COVID and other viruses. There are still people who are going homeless in Minnesota, who are going hungry, who are freezing to death because they can't afford heat. But you want to mourn the loss to the business community.
That's his donors.
Yeah, it's just kind of out of touch elitism that that's what truly sabotaged the Clinton and Harris campaigns, because when you're this woefully out of touch, you cannot expect people to show up and vote for you. It's like I said earlier, before the broadcast, Trump didn't win so much as Kamala Harris lost. Because how do you lose the popular vote to Donald Trump?
Exactly, man.
I mean, this is a repeat of both 2016 and 2004 all in one. Because Bush lost the popular vote in 2000, so you can kind of make a case that he didn't really win the presidency, but he won the popular vote in 2004, partly because John Kerry was such a granny candidate that he basically gave up long before election day. So you can't claim that Donald Trump won this election just because he didn't win the popular vote. But you can't claim that he won the election because Harris lost it. And a turnip should have been able to beat Donald Trump.
I know.
You have to be a special kind of stupid to lose twice to Donald Trump. Once could be considered a fluke because you ran the one candidate stupid enough and out of touch enough and criminal enough to lose to him. But then you make that same mistake twice. I mean, that just shows Joe Biden's victory in 2020 was the fluke.
It was a fluke, yes.
Because of Trump's handling of the COVID pandemic and Black Lives Matter over the George Floyd murder during that time also galvanized, I think, a lot of people on the left to get Trump out of there. But we didn't have that this year. No. So, and then you've got a cop candidate with a governor who called out the National Guard to suppress Black Lives Matter protesters 4 years ago. So, they were never going to win.
Yeah. I forgot about that, too. Well, Tim Walz, I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember this. I remember in 2020 watching footage of the cops, the fully militarized police and National Guard marching down the streets of Minnesota, and they're yelling at people in their houses to get back inside and under threat of whatever. And, and they've got, military tank vehicles rolling down the streets. I mean, oh my God. And this was under Tim Walz. So, and I know COVID has damaged a lot of people's memory centers and they forget from 4 years ago. Fingers crossed, I think I've successfully managed to avoid infection.
Me too.
At least symptomatic infection, anyway, because you can get it asymptomatically.
Asymptomatic, yeah.
But I do still have a memory about this, and it's like, people pay attention, okay? A lot of my older relatives, the typical cultists in whichever political party. My aunt, whom I'm staying with, is a Democrat. Doesn't pay attention to politics at all. Just doesn't listen to anything on the radio except NPR. Doesn't have cable news, thank goodness, but does have like CBS and ABC News, which are very pro-establishment, pro-Pentagon talking points and stuff like that. But she's very woefully uninformed. So, but she has no memory of stuff from 4 years ago or even 1 year ago, because it's like, she doesn't pay attention to what goes on outside her little right-wing bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that with a lot of older Americans, I think, where they just gave up on politics altogether, and they just listen to whatever's on the mainstream news, and they don't listen or pay attention to even political records. Or they'll make an excuse, well, they must have had a good reason. No, they didn't. You don't do bad things for good reasons. You only do bad things for bad reasons. Get your head out of your asses.
Thank you. Exactly.
Fucking boomers. I'm sorry, but that's like
my mama a boomer, man. I feel you. Yeah.
I turned 50 this year, and my older relatives, it's like trying to talk to them about anything is almost impossible. It's like I'm lucky that I'm on the younger side of Generation X, because even the older side of Generation X is more boomer than anything else. I'm closer to being a millennial than I am to being a boomer. But so maybe that's one reason, because I'm part of that generational divide where I grew up poor, not having access to healthcare, not having access to housing, because I've been housing unstable since 2011. I technically I'm homeless because I don't have a permanent home. I'm just staying here until I can get a job and move back out on my own. But for the last 13 years, I've been moving from couch to rented room because I can't afford an entire apartment.
Yeah.
And I'm actually thinking of getting a job with the Peace Corps and moving to the Philippines to be with my fiance and marry her, because the cost of living there is so much lower that if I am able to get a job that pays enough, I can rent a basic 2 or 3 bedroom apartment and still have a fairly decent standard of living, even though I wouldn't be making all that much, because making $2,500 a month before taxes, like I was this year, it's not great, but you could make a very good living on it if you're doing that in the Philippines.
Oh
Or
yeah.
even in Japan, because the Japanese yen is actually even weaker against the dollar than the Philippine peso.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I considered moving to Ghana. Ghana got like kind of dual citizenship program. I thought about moving
Really?
out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, just make sure you get as many of your vaccines as possible, because I was very lucky. I think that I managed to come back from the Philippines without catching anything, but I only had my hepatitis vaccine. I still got to get the second shot next month.
Yeah.
But aside from my COVID and shingles vaccine and hepatitis, I wasn't able to get vaccinated for like malaria or dengue or mpox or any of the other stuff like smallpox, because you have to pay out of pocket for that. My insurance doesn't cover it. I'm on Medicaid CareSource right now, which is how I'm able to get dental care and get vaccinated and get health care. But when I turn 55, I'm going to have to start paying back what I paid into Medicaid, because of the way the law is set up here in Ohio. I have to start paying that back. I'm not going to be able to do it, and they'll likely garnish my Social Security and wages to get that money back.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah. I mean, if I could get a job and live in another country, I mean, that would be great, because I think especially now more than ever, I think it's incumbent on us to try and help out and kind of fix a lot of the stuff that we broke in other countries. because there's a lot of poverty in the Philippines too. I mean, it's a whole different world, very Americanized. I mean, going into the malls, it's just like walking into an American mall with all the American brand stores that they have there.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of rampant poverty there, and unless you're lucky enough to get an education and get at least a bachelor's, you're never going to be able to get more than the bare minimum you can use to scrape by. A lot of people who live in the mountain regions, they have to cobble their homes together out of whatever materials they can get their hands on, whether it's like bamboo or cement or whatever. I visited my fiance's family in Dumaguete, that they have a farm up in the mountains, and her parents have a bamboo house, and then her extended family live on surrounding farms. One had an actual house that was like built, like it was definitely an older home, but that was like one of the only actual houses on there that wasn't built from whatever available materials. But it's not that they're bad building. My fiance's parents' house might be a bamboo house, but it's very decent. If you can adjust if you can adjust your thinking to how people live in other countries, and what constitutes a decent life. I mean, the house is actually something that looked like something my dad might have put together, because my dad, before he became disabled, he built an addition onto his home, when I was still like an infant or something. It looked fairly decent. So, I mean, it had to be taken down and rebuilt after so many years, but, I mean, it was still, pretty decent. So, as long as you change your mindset as to what constitutes a decent standard of living, and accept that, people will have very different ideas about what constitutes a good life. I think you can get used to living in another country, but that doesn't mean though that there isn't a whole lot of poverty there. And if you're in the big cities, and you're in poverty. I mean, we have people coming up to our Grabs, which is their version of Uber or Lyft, or buses, begging for money. And it's like, I really felt for them because, I wanted to help, but it's like there's so many of them that it's just really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And that really needs to be addressed. And I think a lot of that would be fixed if we got rid of the pro-U.S. government and put in an actual socialist government that believes in actually doing for its people. Because I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily a communist government either, but just it's even something progressive like the New Deal era Democrats, will go a long way to help improve situations there. And it just is a thing that is a phenomenon in a whole lot of countries. It's not just the Philippines, but you've also got Thailand, you've also got Myanmar, and a lot of colonized nations in Southeast Asia, Africa, where they haven't kicked out the U.S. or France quite yet.
Yeah.
But you really have to feel for a lot of people in these countries, and I think it's our duty, especially if we're Westerners traveling to other countries to live and work. We have to be more than just colonizers going to live in these places and living off of them. We have to actually be willing to integrate into those societies and actually help improve people's standards of living.
Oh yeah,
that's what
I want to do when I go to Ghana. Okay. Got some closing questions for you. I asked this to all my guests.
Okay.
Whether they're on Tea Time or here. The first question is, what are 5 dinner guests you would invite, dead or alive?
Well, let's see. With proper COVID precautions, I would say Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, then Booker Washington, and finally Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
Because Frederick Douglass, especially, he was a guy who inspired John Brown.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
a lot of people don't realize this, but John Brown was very big into the abolitionist movement and very, very close ties with people like Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, and other abolitionists of the time who were trying to end slavery. And a lot of people speculate that Brown was coordinating with people like Frederick Douglass with his raid on Harper's Ferry, which a lot of people may not realize. But if it wasn't for Frederick Douglass and people like him who advocated for abolition at a time when it could very well get you killed. I mean, we had during that time, during the 1850s and 1860s, we actually had members of Congress physically assaulted with clubs by other members of Congress over their abolitionist positions.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that was a very violent time in our history. I mean, it's a very violent time now, but it was on a whole other level back in the day. So, people like Frederick Douglass were taking very huge risks.
Yeah.
Doing what they did. And they also inspired a lot of white abolitionists to really kind of step up to the plate. That's why Malcolm X, when he was talking to people about white allies, pay attention to what those allies are willing to do. If they're willing to be like John Brown and fight and give their lives, and they're true allies and you can work with them. But if they're not, then you're better off just not even bothering. So okay. I would love to have gotten inside Mr. Douglas's head. The Roosevelts, obviously, I'm a big fan of them, although I could do without their imperialism. And then Booker T. Washington, because of his achievements. I mean, he was the one who came up with a lot of advancements in farming and helped a lot of black farmers get up and running at a time when they were still struggling to try and because their ancestors were promised 40 acres and a mule, and obviously those promises were broken, struggling during that time to try and make ends meet, and do with very few resources compared to white farmers. And so, Dr. Washington, what he did, because of his experiments with agriculture and finding new techniques to increase crop yields, and then he shared that with other black farmers. I mean, he did a lot of good work in helping his people to lift themselves up and succeed under circumstances that were very trying for them. So, I mean, just to be able to meet with people like that and get inside their heads and find out what makes them tick and what drove them, and that is something I've always admired about these gentlemen.
Oh yeah, man, that would be man. Hey, when you if you had that dinner party, man, hey, add an extra seat. I love it.
Awesome, dude. I would love to have you over, man.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? If I can add more people, like 5 more people, Langston Hughes, one of my favorite poets from the early 20th century. Then there will also be Frederick Delius, who is one of my favorite classical composers. But then you've also got, I'm trying to remember her name, but she was this woman who was very much a part of the European resistance against the Nazis. She was, I think, like 17 years old when she was hanged to death by the Nazis. But she was actually quite brave going up into her execution. But she was very instrumental, and just to be at that young age and to fight like that against a genocidal movement that was trying to wipe out your people is just incredibly inspiring, I think, because look, this girl did more at 17 to fight for freedom and for the survival of her people than most of us, in our 30s, 40s, and 50s would today. I'm trying to remember.
That's true. Yeah.
This person's name, and it's escaping me. But yeah, if you look up people hanged by the Nazis in Eastern Europe, you can probably find her name. I think it began with an M. And then, of course, there was a lot of the black comic book creators of the 20th century. If you look them up, there's quite a number of them whose works, even though they didn't have the resources to really kind of maintain their publications, but they directly inspired people at Marvel, for example, to come up with characters like Black Panther, or people at DC to come up with characters such as John Stewart Green Lantern. If it hadn't been for them, we might not have had a lot of the black characters we have today, like, say, Static Shock or Icon or Mon-El's Superman, because they had a direct influence on there. And I think really people kind of forget that history, and we really need to learn a lot more about that. Like a lot of people forget Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers. He was half black. His mother, I think, was a Haitian former slave.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, if you want to really learn history, go back and learn all that stuff, because these were people who were writing at a time when you wouldn't actually think people of color would be as popular. And they did face a lot of racism, but they contributed so much to our history and to our modern conveniences, like with Booker T. Washington. His research into farming helped create the modern agricultural technologies that we use today and take for granted.
Oh yeah. That'd be an ultimate dinner party right there.
Yeah, definitely.
The second question is, what's your favorite comfort foods?
Oh God, what aren't my favorite comfort foods? Key lime pie is one, and then Pretty much anything with lamb.
Oh wow. Okay. I like key lime pie, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and Little Debbie snack cakes.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those way too much.
Yeah.
But I also got to try bean pie and even buttermilk pie too, which those have become some of my favorites. So every time I'm in on the east side of town, if there's a black-owned store that sells it, I'll go in there and get it because it's like. In fact, I actually first got bean pie in the 90s because my dad was very active in his church and also in his community block watch, and so we went to a lot of the community's events, which included the black neighborhoods in my neighborhood, and that was my first taste of bean pie. And then so whenever I go into black-owned businesses during my activism. Whenever I see some kind of food there, if I haven't tried it before, because I tend to be gastronomically very adventurous, so I'll try anything just about once, just because if I don't try it, I won't know if I'll like it. So they had bean pie and buttermilk pie, and so I was like, okay, I'll get these and see what they're like. And I was like, oh man, these are tasty.
Yeah.
Like really tasty. So I got to get the recipe and learn how to make them. But and I normally hate buttermilk with a passion. I think it's disgusting. But if you add it as an ingredient for buttermilk chicken or in pies or pancakes, then I'll be able to eat it.
Yeah. Same
like,
here.
Okay.
Yeah. Where do you see Left Independent in 10 years from now?
Oh God, I hope I'm still alive in 10 years. Because honestly, because the way things are going, I'm wondering if humanity itself has 10 years remaining.
That's what I said too. The fourth question is: if you were president, if you were sworn in, what 5 executive orders would you sign on the first day in office?
Cancel student debt, implement universal health care, implement universal housing, and in the form of universal housing vouchers, but with caps on rent so that you're not subsidizing landlord profits. Same thing with universal health care. Because if you're not capping the costs, all you're doing is subsidizing healthcare profits. And that's something that I think needs to be discussed, is why are health insurance and housing so expensive in the first place? And would we even need socialized healthcare or housing if we got control of housing costs and healthcare costs? But because there are laws on the books right now that allow through executive order to pass Medicare for all, especially during an ongoing pandemic, I absolutely would do that. So that would be one thing. Then universal housing, because again, during a pandemic, especially when people are losing their homes because they can't work anymore, people need to be housed. And we had a housing crisis even before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's, if I could do it through executive order, probably through legislation, but if necessary through executive order, universal basic income. That would supplement people's existing income. Obviously, it couldn't replace it, but if people had extra money in their pockets so that they didn't have to worry about quitting their jobs and moving on to a new one or being unemployed for a while, that would, I think, help a lot of people. And then again, that this wouldn't necessarily be through executive order, but I think there is actually something that the president has under existing drug laws to reclassify marijuana and in order to decriminalize it.
Okay. Man, that sounds good. I vote for you. I definitely vote for you. Last question. Which person will you want to see on the Good Faith Show? It don't matter which show on ATP Network, but
okay. You know what? I would love to see a couple of people on there. There is there's the Data Report, who gives regular updates on COVID-19 and other viruses, and also he's got a weather channel as well called the Climate Data Report. I think he needs more visibility, and then there's another activist who goes by the name of Olivia. But her Twitter handle and Blue Sky handle is Baltimore, Mass. She does a lot of good work down in Maryland, trying to do mutual aid benefits. I think she could stand from a lot more heightened visibility.
Okay. Yeah. I want to try to get data reports contact information. I definitely want to have a good conversation with him about wastewater data and all that stuff. So
yeah, I'll see if I can go ahead and call up their accounts on Blue Sky here, because I don't think Liv is very active anymore on Twitter, but she is active on Blue Sky. So let me.
Okay.
Here she is. And I'll post that in private chat.
Okay.
If I can actually go ahead and get my. Oh, okay, so, well, I'll just have to type it out. Live 1312. All right, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's her user handle right there. I just put that into private chat.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to get a hold of her there, by all means, please do so. Just let her know I sent you and that you're interested in helping to promote her work. But yeah, because I think the more networks we have, the better on the left, because I think it's far too easy right now to get caught up in some of the bigger ones and kind of lose your voice in those. Especially people like Doorknob and his suck ups, where they're very cliquish and more likely to attack you if you dare go against what they want. By the way, that Steelers uniform is blasphemy.
Yeah, come on.
Cleveland Browns, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Cleveland Browns are the ultimate underdogs. Okay. They're the ultimate losers. And Mason Rudolph is a racist bitch. Okay. No, seriously. I mean, he actually was the one who first.
Yeah.
He was the one who actually started that thing with the helmet, trying to pull off.
Big Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett's helmet in the first place, and then he was kicking him and hurling racist epithets at him, and he only got away with a fine while Garrett got suspended for the rest of the season. No, that shit is fucked up. Okay, fuck the Steelers and fuck Mason Rudolph.
Come on. Damn, man, that's cold. I can say the same thing about the Browns. So y'all got lucky.
Oh no, the Browns have their own issues. Believe me, the Browns have their own issues.
Yeah,
you will not hear me deny any criticisms of the Cleveland Browns. But I can do that because they're my hometown team. I'm allowed to criticize them.
Yeah, man. Hey, at least the Cavaliers, man, they good season. They started.
Strong. Yeah. I'm actually quite surprised with the Cavs. I mean, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And they were the first team in over 50 years to bring a championship home to Cleveland. Well, no, second team, because the Cleveland Cleveland hockey team actually brought home a championship before the Cavs did. It's just the Cavs got all the press because nobody knows Cleveland has a hockey team.
I didn't know to now either. Yeah, man.
Or a soccer team for that matter. But
yeah. Okay, guys, that wraps it up with the interview with Left Independent. Man, thank you so much for coming on. Man, I love to have
thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I love to have you on. You're welcome to come on here anytime.
Yeah, and with any luck, I'll have my green screen issues resolved because you can kind of see the rest of my room behind me.
So, hopefully I have my camera in. Hopefully I find a green screen because
I got to resolve my lighting issues. Because my glasses are a little bit large and they reflect everything, dude. I can't even have my overhead light on because it just messes everything up. But But as you can see, I've got my logo in the background. I was going to do a video news background, but it turns out StreamYard doesn't let video backgrounds because I had a very lovely animated news background.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you on the other side, Left.
All right, awesome. See you there.
All right, man. Bye.
All right, take care.